Welcome to another episode of the Parra Cave podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Parra Cave.
And yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Parra Cave podcast. Troy Warner here, and it is the game review podcast between the Manly Sea Eagles and the Parramatta Eels, in which the Manly Sea Eagles won 26 points to 12 at 4 Pines Park in front of 17,286 fans. Look, it was going to be an interesting game, that is for sure, especially after the dramas of the DCE contract. There was questions about whether the fans at Brookvale, the Manly fans, would boo DCE or not. That didn't appear to be the case at all. And it looked like he was one of the better players on the field for Manly anyway. So, look, it was always going to be tough for Parramatta to get this win over there, especially as to what had happened during the week. And look, it was 4 tries to 2. Parramatta scored 12 points. All their 12 points came in the second half, with Joe Ofahengaue scoring a try in the 55th minute, which some people call a little bit controversial, as did he or didn't he get the ball down? Look, it was confirmed by the bunker, so it was awarded, so congratulations, Joe, on scoring your first try of the season. I think it was his 12th try in his career, which is now played 200 games. That was his 200th game yesterday. Sean Lane got the other try for Parramatta in the 79th minute. It was a little bit of a consolation try. A kick was put through. Sean got the bounce, and Zach Lomax converted both of those tries as well. But it was 12-0 at half-time. Jason Saab scored a try down the left edge, of Manly. The right-hand side of Manly, the left-hand side of Parramatta. Basically sort of outnumbered on that side. Found a lot of space. Unfortunately, Isaiah Ioangi couldn't make the tackle on him, and he went away to score for Manly the first try of the game. Look, Parramatta had a few opportunities. There was a third tackle. Look, it might have been a rush of blood, or it might have been just trying something new. Maybe saw an opportunity. Isaiah Iongi put a kick through. The execution wasn't the best, as it went dead, and Manly got a 7-tackle set. Then they got a penalty, which didn't help Parramatta's cause at all. And then just another ill discipline as well. Manly get a 6 again. They go out wide to Ben Travojevic. He looked like he was going to score the try, although he got the offload back to Turbo, who was basically running on one leg throughout that first half. He copped a bit of a knee, and it's come out yesterday that it is a possible MCL injury, so he'll be out for about 6 to 8 weeks for Manly, which is a big blow for them. But not only for them, but for him personally as well, Tom. It probably looks like he won't play State of Origin this year again. With this current injury that has happened, having that amount of times on the sideline is obviously not very good for him or New South Wales. But and look, I have my little bit of concerns for Tom personally. My personal thoughts. Look, he's a champion player, and unfortunately, though, his injuries are really cutting him down in terms of his career. If it's not a knee, then it's a hamstring. We both know about those ones. He's even been over to America to have them looked at. And look, we don't like to see these champion players out of the game. We want to see them play in the game, but it certainly has dented Manly's chances this season, having a champion player like Tom Turbo out. But that was the second try of the game to Lehigh Hopewadi, who scored that try. And look, it was 10-0 after 20 minutes. And look, Manly had 68% of the ball and in that first 20 minutes. So if you don't have the ball, you're not going to win the game, obviously. But that first 20 minutes, Manly had 68% of the ball. Ill discipline, as I said, and penalties and 6 agains really didn't help Parramatta's cause. Look, a really terrible mistake from Parramatta. I do not know what happened. It was a time violation penalty after taking too long to drop the ball out. Garrick made the easy conversion to make it 12-0, which ended up being the half-time score. Now, I do not know what happened there about whether there was confusion or what was going on. But one thing I will say is I just don't understand these short dropouts, especially when you're under the pump and maybe when you're behind. I don't know. I think it's just the normal now, I think, in rugby league, and that is short dropouts. Why not kick the ball long? More times, often than not, you see teams do the short dropout and they don't get the ball back anyway, and then they're straight under pressure to defend their asses off, basically. And again, more often than not, you see tries that are scored as a result of a short dropout. Just kick it long. I hate the short dropouts, but hey, I'm not a rugby league coach. I'm not a rugby league player, so it just seems that Parramatta we can't execute them good enough to get the ball back more often than not. And you would think. You would actually think having a tall timber like Sean Lane out there, potentially he would be a great target to try and get this ball back, or Zach Lomax, who we know who can jump for the ball, and we do see that happen. But anyway, that's what they decide to do these days. As I said, it might be the normal. There was a good period of play from Parramatta. Look, they showed signs yesterday of what they could do, but there was a good period. Nearly led to a try, but there was a kick put up and Garrick catches the ball under pressure. Joe Ofahengawi, as I mentioned before, played his 200th game. He looked like he needed to go off for a HIA after copying a hit, but then also pulled off a massive shot, probably one of the tackles of the round, to be honest. It was a great shot. Again, Parramatta on pressure on Manly down there, and unfortunately, though, it was a poor kick from Joey Lussick. Manly run it out, and Parra are back down their end again. So, look, the commentary said, why not kick it up for Lomax? We know what he's like in the air. He should be a target, but let's give it to him let's kick it towards him to potentially catch the ball like we've seen him do in the past and maybe score a try or pass it back inside or whatever. But that was the wrong kick at that time. Before half-time, there was a good run from Iongi after a Lomax offload. Gets Parramatta down to Manly's end, but then another poor fifth tackle option. So the fifth tackle options from Parramatta at the moment are not the best. The execution of the kicks aren't the best at the moment. When you are struggling, you are struggling. When you're down in confidence, you are down in confidence, and things just don't work for you. As I mentioned, it was 12-0 at half-time. Tom Trbojevic didn't come back after half-time. You saw as soon as the half-time hooter went off, he ran up the sheds because he knew that something was obviously wrong, and it was a apparent MCL injury as well. A devastating run, you could say, from Hamoli Olakau'atu. He ran over Dylan Brown, got through a couple of others as well. He put a kick in, actually. Luckily, the Fox was there to wrap it up. But then shortly after, Parramatta knocked the ball on, and Manly again put the pressure on Parramatta. There was a play to go out wide. Sean Russell had a chance to get the ball, but unfortunately knocked it on. Manly then get a penalty and go 14-0 in front, which I thought was probably a strange option. I thought maybe they would have kept the pressure on and maybe gone for another try, but I guess that's probably percentage football where you just get into that 14-0 in front. So three scoring, Parramatta didn't score three times to take the lead, but I would have thought they would have went for the try myself, but they didn't. Now, one thing after that, Riley Smith came on with 30 minutes to go. Now, Riley Smith, what does Parramatta do with Riley Smith? Does he start the game at number 9? I think, yes, they need to bite the bullet and see how he goes. I don't think fitness is a problem because we see him breaking fitness records at training. I think he'll be right for playing 80 minutes. And look, you're not going to know if you don't have a go, I guess. Just need to mix it up. I think with Dylan Walker coming into this side against the Dragons, most likely, which we'll find out on Tuesday, I think then he will probably go into 14. So where does that leave Riley Smith? Does that mean that he then starts the game in the number 9 position? I think he did a really good run yesterday. It was great to see up the middle. He noticed that the markers were offside and a really good run up the middle. So we know he knows what to do, and I would just probably put him in as the starting number 9. I don't think you need, with Dylan Walker in the side, probably as a 14, I don't think you need either Brendan Hands or Joey Lussick in the side, to be honest. We saw in the first couple of weeks of the competition, Riley actually playing about 55, sometimes 60 minutes in those first couple of rounds. Since then, his time has shrunk a little bit. And look, fans aplenty were messaging me during the game and just saying, get Riley on. And look, I couldn't agree more, but look, that's the coach's decision, not my decision. Jason Riles is the coach, not me, but not plenty of other Parra fans. But look, as I said, it'll just be interesting to see what happens on Team List Tuesday tomorrow in terms of who will come in, who will start that number 9 position, who will be on the bench. So interesting to see. But I really hope that Riley, he just has that great, what do you call it? I'm sorry, I've lost my words. He has that great distribution, that's the word, from dummy half. His passes seem so crisp to either the 5'8" or the halfback. It just seems his passing game is a lot better than what we are seeing at the moment. But hopefully the number 9 jersey is his. Sean Lane, he copped a kick from DCE, a Falcon it was, right in the head. Obviously that's got to hurt, right? He went off for a HIA assessment. Fortunately, he passed that assessment. A little bit later, Joe Offhand-Gowie scores Parramatta's first try. Made it 14-6. So, look, and then the game ended up 26-12. Manly scored those 2 quick tries, 62 minutes, and after the 67th minute, they scored those, which were both converted by Ruben Garrick. They stood at Parramatta when they were 14-6. When they were 14-6, you thought 8 points, maybe they could get back to 14-12. But just look, I don't know, the attack's not there. There's nothing exciting happening there. It's all the same sort of attack and pretty predictable, I think, from the other side. Now, if we go into a few of the stats of the game, possession, Manly had 55%, Parramatta 45%. Completion rate. Now, this is a big one here. As we know, you've got to be over 80% at least to win a rugby league game. Manly had 86%. That came from 38 completions out of 44 sets. Parramatta had 6 less sets and completed 10 less sets, so 73% for them. 28 sets out of 38, so 73% for them. So that was a concern there. Tackle breaks, 34-29 Manly. 29 for Manly, 34 for Parramatta, roughly about the same. There's no other real outstanding stats from this one, other than there was one forced dropout from Manly, none from Parramatta. Missed tackles, as I said, 29 from Parramatta, 34 actually from Manly, one intercept. The negative play, the errors 12-10, Parramatta 12, Manly 10. Penalties, ruck infringements, again, it's just a discipline that is something. It seemed early on in that game yesterday, Todd Smith was blowing a lot of penalties and 6 agains in that game. I think it sort of tailored off in the second half. So again, inside the 10 metres, 2 for Parramatta, 1 ruck infringement, 6 penalties. So they need to work on that one, I guess, because we know that obviously discipline is something that needs to be on point for you to win football games. Now, in terms of top performers, I guess you could say, well, the fans voted Joe Offahengawi as their player of the match, their Eels player of the match. He had 12 runs for 95 metres, scored that try, and had 35 tackles. So a really good effort from Joe in his 200th game, and hopefully we can see that for another few weeks now, especially with Jack Williams out of this team for about another 4 to 5 weeks. With that knee injury, so it maybe look like he will be starting the next few games at least anyway, for that one. Zach Lomax had a quiet game in terms of run metres compared to last week. 19 runs, 170 metres. Josh Adokar, 15 runs, 132 metres. So they were your top run getters. It looked very, I guess you could say, disappointing in terms of the forwards. Junior Paulo was probably second behind, or he was second behind Joe Offahengawi on 12 runs for 93 metres. But at the commentary in the game, from the commentators and also messages as well, as I said before, Parramatta's back rowers, they need to contribute a lot more, I think, in games, to be a force to be reckoned with. We see the back rowers for Manly, and you see someone like Haumole Olakau'atu, he is a strike weapon for Manly out in that edge, but 16 runs, 183 metres. Ben Travojevic, 9 runs, 74 metres, but that crucial offload to brother Tom for Manly's second try there. Just a little bit of a better contribution, you could say. As I said, Haumole is a strike weapon for Manly. Parramatta's back rowers don't seem to have that strike weapon, or Parramatta don't seem to have that strike weapon in their back row. So I don't know if Coach Jason Riles will make any changes this week. I hope he does. I would probably put Sean Lane back into New South Wales Cup. Look, I don't know what's going on with Ryan Madison and Bryce Cartwright, but if you want to win football games, I would probably get one of those two into the spot there. Kotoga, I think, maybe just holds his spot for next week against the Dragons. He does have a mistake in him. He can earn a penalty. He does have an offload in his game. I would probably keep him in the team one more week. But we need something from the back rowers. As we see other teams, they have strike weapons in their back row. As I said, Manly's got Hamoli Olakawatu. The Bulldogs, when he's fit and playing, Viliami Kikau. We see Sean Bloor and Eli Katoa at the Melbourne Storm, Liam Martin at the Panthers. So you see those sort of second rowers, and you see that they're strike weapons, and they get the run meters, they get the runs, and they're dangerous out in those edges. But nothing really from the Parramatta back rowers. And I don't know whether they're there for just defence, but you do need some sort of attack out of them as well, I thought. Sam Tuivati, I thought, went pretty well yesterday as well. 11 runs, 87 metres. I think he will get a bench spot again. Jermaine Hopgood, top tackler for Parramatta. That's just what he does. That's what he's known for. 43 tackles, only one missed tackle, 93% tackle efficiency. Dean Hawkins yesterday, I thought, played pretty well, sort of controlled the team really well, nearly got a 40-20. Good to see that option there, but I think he is probably the right option at halfback without Mitchell Moses, and I think that's what he was brought to the club for, to be that player, to be that number 7 when Mitchell Moses is out. A bit of a different kicking game to Mitchell. Doesn't quite get the height on kicks like Mitch, but they certainly are effective kicks. That is for sure. He kicked for 13 kicks, 456 metres during the game. 3 bombs, 2 crossfield kicks. So maybe a few more crossfield kicks to Zach Lomax up in the air, potentially. Dylan Brown, look, he probably had his better game. Probably his better. We saw moments yesterday through his game that was probably one of his better games this year, but still not taking control, I don't think, and many others as well. There's still a lot of criticism about him, whether Parramatta drop him to New South Wales Cup. Look, I don't think that will happen. I think he'll retain his spot in the team. 12 runs, 110 metres. So, look, there was a little flash of brilliance from one of his runs there that we know what he can do. But I don't know. I think there's a lot of pressure on Dylan at the moment with Mitchell being out. I think probably some have even said maybe he should have a week off or 2 weeks off and just get away from football, clear his head, come back and see if we can have the Dylan Brown that we know he can deliver. We know that he has the talent. We're just waiting to see it again. 2022 was a great season for him. And obviously the Parramatta team, but and with his combination with Sean Lane as well. But look, I think there is a lot of pressure on Dylan. I feel sorry for him. I don't feel sorry for him for the contract that he signed. That's a great contract that he has signed, but that is for next year, and that's obviously maybe something that the NRL can look at in terms of a transfer window. That has been spoken about for clubs to or for a transfer window to be put in place. When do you put that transfer window in? I don't know, but at the moment, as it stands, we know Dylan Brown has signed a $14 million deal at Newcastle for over 10 years. So obviously that expectation is on him to perform this year, I guess, because that's how much you are going to be paid for next year. Isaiah Iongi, as I said, he was probably one of the better players, 172 run meters for Parramatta, the most run meters. Look, he made a few errors. It's only his 5th game in first grade. He will only get better. As I said before, he put that kicking on a 3rd tackle. I don't mind that. I don't mind that he is trying something. Just the execution wasn't the best. He did drop one ball yesterday at a crucial point in the game. I'm not too sure if Manly went on to score after that drop ball, but look, it was raining, sunny yesterday. Conditions were a bit rough, but look, I'm just going to say it's his 5th first-grade game. He is getting better and more involved, and as I said, one of the Eels players of the match. So he will only get better with time as well. Now, to next week's game for Parramatta. Look, it takes on the St George Dragons Saturday, 3 p.m. at CommBank Stadium. The Dragons got their first win of their season against the Melbourne Storm on the weekend. A very gritty win to them. Dragons at CommBank Stadium. Last year it was a ridiculous game. It was 44 points to 40 in favour of Parramatta. Probably the game that cost the Dragons making the semi-finals, potentially. It was the only time they played last year. Look, Clint Gutherson, he returns to CommBank Stadium for the first time in new colours, so that will be interesting to see what sort of a reception he gets. I do believe that the Talking Parra podcast has got something planned, or has put up a post last week. I think they will put up a post again this week about a tribute to Clint Gutherson from Parramatta fans, so stay tuned to the socials of the Talking Parra podcast about that one. But it will be interesting to see what sort of reception he gets at Parramatta on Saturday. What sort of changes will be made to this Parramatta side? Well, as I mentioned, I think that the back rowers may change. I think will the Joe Offahengawi, will he keep the starting lineup? I think he will. So we'll just have to wait and see. Will Riley Smith get that number 9 starting spot? That would be great to see that one. I think the backs will probably stay the same. I don't think we'll see Mitchell Moses this week. You never know. Just wait and see. I think he's still a couple of weeks off. But look, the way Parramatta are travelling these days, and with Clint Gutherson, his great mate, coming back to play Parramatta, who knows? We might see an early return of Mitchell. Just have to wait and see for Team List Tuesday on 4 p.m. on Tuesday. We will also see Dylan Walker, obviously, into this side somewhere. Will he play 5'8" and Dylan Brown go to halfback? Who knows? We know that Dylan's not a halfback. Well, that's what most people think anyway, including myself. But will we see that change? Could we have 2 Dylans in the halfback role? Look, I don't think so. I think Dylan will probably go into that 14 spot. So the bench will be interesting to see what happens next week. Does Joash Papali come into the side somewhere as well? Does he come in as a 14? Does he go in as a 6? Who knows? But apparently he played really well in New South Wales Cup. The Parramatta side went down to the Sea Eagles, but he was one of the players of the game. Bailey Simonson as well. He has played a couple of games now in New South Wales Cup, coming back from injury. He, I'm sure, will make himself available, which will probably find Sean Russell in a bit of competition for that wing spot. Zach Lomax, does he play wing against his old club? Does he move to the wing, or does he stay in centre? Who knows? We'll just have to find out on Tuesday, Team List Tuesday, what this team is looking about. But Parramatta, they will be desperate for a victory at CommBank Stadium against the Dragons next Saturday, 3 p.m. That's all for now about this game review. Thank you very much for listening. I really appreciate it, and the support as well. Stay tuned for the tipping podcast that will come out during the week, and also the NRL round 4 review. And also the interview podcast as well, and game day preview as well. There's a lot of podcasts, a lot of content coming out. But thank you very much for listening to this one. Unfortunately, Parramatta going down 26 points to 12 to the Manly Sea Eagles. Hopefully they can bounce back next week and get a victory against the Dragons. The Parra Cave podcast by the fan, for the fans. Go Parra!
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Parra Cave podcast. See you next time.